Hi folks, I'm Chris. This is my show, My Life is an Air Adventure. I'm wearing my Voltron shirt from Loot Crate from months ago. I don't even remember what the theme was. Classic, arcade, something or other. Yeah, I have no clue. But I'm here to review the Netflix exclusive Voltron Legendary Defenders. I think that's what it's called. Legendary Defenders, yeah. TV series. I guess not TV. Is it still a TV series if it's exclusive to Netflix? Series, I guess. I actually kind of took notes this time. Ranted about it on Ain't It Cool News, so I thought I'd since I had a pretty strong opinion on that, I thought I'd do a review. I don't usually review television shows or whatever, but here we go. Overall, it was pretty disappointing. I lost interest in it about halfway through and just had it on in the background while I surfed online. I hated the Paladin's armor. I hated the look of Voltron in general. His torso, he had sort of a... I don't even know what you would call it. I mean, it was like a silver cylinder with lines. I mean, looked like they were trying to do a ribbed thing or whatever. It didn't come off right to me. And he had his breastplate. I mean, it wasn't the classic Voltron breastplate. I mean, obviously it was an updated look of Voltron, but I just didn't like the way it came off. He also had like a jetpack thing. I know he has the wings from the classic version, has the wings type things or whatever, the crisscrossed wings on the back. I didn't like it. This was more of a almost he reminded me of Yellow Jacket from not Yellow Jacket, kind of Yellow Jacket-ish from Ant-Man. Almost like I don't know, almost like a grasshopper type thing, where they were arched. I didn't like the look of it. But yeah, the Paladin's armor didn't really. I don't know. It was uninspired. It kind of reminded me of Tron a little bit. There was a twist with one of the Paladins, which was pretty lame, considering who the voice person was. Which I recognized the voice person pretty early on, like in the first episode. I'm like, who is that? Why do I recognize that voice? And I'm like, oh, okay, I know who that is. I won't say, because, I mean, there is a reveal of this character's whatever background. So I won't spoil that for you. But it didn't. I mean, it was just like, really? That was... The funny thing was, one of the characters... When the reveal does happen to the rest of the group, like, two of the characters find out early on, and then the rest of the characters are let in on it. And one of the characters is like, wait a minute, we were supposed to think otherwise? And I'm like, yeah, really? Because, I mean, I know who does the voice, and while it's not uncommon for... Anyway, so yeah, I don't know, that was a lame plot point that didn't really need to be. I mean, I get why, but it was just cliche. I'm not a huge Voltron fan. I don't know a lot about it. Like, I didn't watch the series. I knew the basics. Bunch of little cats joined together, big robot, pilots, different colored suits, that sort of thing. I have no clue who the bad guys are in the original. I don't know if it's the same in this or if it's something completely different. But they just I didn't care about them. One of the bad guys seemed kind of cool. Um, like their look was good, but their characterization just was not there for me. I mean, I don't know, just not there. Um, uh, as far as updates or modernizations go, I enjoy the Nickelodeon Ninja Turtles series a lot more. Um, this is obviously a more serious take than the Nick Turtles is. I mean, this is probably aimed at 13 to whatever year olds, but the Ninja Turtles is aimed at a bit younger. Even though I watch both and I'm well over 13. Hello. Um, but it just wasn't fun. There was a couple fun moments, but other than that, it was just like it wasn't any more. It wasn't anything I hadn't already seen in 100 Star Trek episodes, or Power Rangers, or just about any other show that's ever existed. I mean, there was nothing original about it. The best thing was in the pilot episode. There was a chase when they rescued one of the paladins. Four of the paladins, before they became the paladins, rescued this other guy who and they were on this sort of. It was kind of like the mule from Serenity, the movie, not Firefly the series, but the TV or the movie where they had the actual hover mule. It was kind of like that scene a little bit. It was really interesting. I wish they'd done more of that, but they didn't. Okay. Let's get to the characters, because that was really a lot of what bothered me. The Paladins first. Is that what they were called in the original? Because I didn't care for that at all. I don't know what you would call them. Knights, maybe, but I don't know. Paladins just didn't feel. It was like trying too hard to be edgy and cool. What's the... I don't know. I didn't care for it. I mean, obviously they couldn't call them Rangers, but something other than Paladins. Keith and Lance were both pretty lame. They set them up to be the Mikey or the Raph and Leo of the group. Early on, Lance. See, that's the thing. I can't even keep them straight. I'm pretty sure Lance was blue and Keith was red. But Keith had been drummed out of whatever military service they were in. And so, but Lance was still kind of bitter about him always being upstaged by Keith, and so they set him up as kind of these, feuding potential leaders, and really, out of the two, I would have picked Lance, I would have picked Keith, just because originally he had the Tommy-esque character. I mean, he was the badass of the group. He was the new extra guy. At least I thought. And then they rescue this guy Shiro, who's an old dude, and it just, I don't know. It felt like, why put an old dude in a group in the Voltron team? You know, make him the mentor or whatever. But I wouldn't have picked Shiro. I would have, only because his character didn't fit that role. But I mean, if you're gonna have an old dude on the show, make it the mentor. Don't put him actually in the robot. It's like having Splinter go out on missions with the turtles. Once in a while that's fine, but don't have him in every episode, because he's going to be the badass. Only this guy really wasn't the badass. He wasn't the leader. He was the head of the Voltron, but he wasn't the leader. But I got ahead of myself there. Anyway, they were pretty much Raph and Casey, where they were both hotheads, both, neither one actually would have made great leaders with the characters that they were written as. But I mean, they should have written them as better. I don't know. They could have been a lot better characters than they were. And they, like I said, they're pretty indistinguishable. I couldn't put the names to the characters at all. With those two, I'm pretty sure Lance was the blue goof off, trying way too hard to be smooth with the ladies and not character, while Keith is the red hothead. Of the two of them. Hunk was actually the most interesting of the five. They set him up to be the bumbling goofball of the group. I mean, he could have easily been Mikey. I'm comparing it to Ninja Turtles because that's the show I watched most. One of the few animated series I watched the most. He could have easily been the Mikey of the group. The goofball. Doesn't hardly do anything, gets it right, but never on purpose, just kind of stumbles his way through. But they actually had him be pretty intelligent early on, and made him more, kind of like, he made him more intelligent, but still being terrified of the situation that he was forced into, kind of like a mix of Donatello and Ron Weasley. Pidge, I've already given too much away, I'm sure, but the less said the better. I liked the character, I liked the voice person, but it was cliche. It was obvious from the start, and I don't know why they felt the need to do that storyline. Shiro, once, I already kind of did this, but I have no idea why they decided to have one of the paladins be an old dude. It ruined the group dynamic. It should have been 4 or 5 teens. Like I said, he was the head, but not in charge. Allura should have been one of the paladins. She's the princess, the daughter of the king who's actually dead. Spoiler alert. But it should have been Keith as the black lion head, Lance as the red arm, Hunk as the blue leg, Pidge as the green arm, and Allura as the yellow leg. Allura should have been the one they rescued in the first episode from whatever group they were a part of before finding the first lion, and Corin, the other member of whatever race they were, should have been the mentor. She could have led them to him, and he could have sent him on the quest to find the lions. Shiro wasn't needed at all. I mean, Shiro was kind of like... honestly, if anything, he kind of reminded me of... what's that that Jim Henson space series with the Muppets? Oh, I can't think of his name. I can't think of the name. But anyway, it reminded me of that, where old dude gets lost through a black hole, and then or dude gets lost through a black hole and can't get home or whatever. And the group actually gets sucked through a black hole into these. Once they find the first lion on, I guess, Earth, they get sucked through a black hole into and end up on, I guess, the planet where the princess and Corin are still in stasis or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a Voltron fan at all. I know more about Power Rangers than I do Voltron, which might be coloring some of my opinion of it, but I just thought it was badly done. Like I said, none of the stuff other than that chase at the very beginning was anything that hadn't seen before, and even the chase I'd seen before, but at least it was cool. The rest of the stuff was just really bad sci-fi tropes. They had vehicles inside their lions, like light cycle type stuff, escape pods or whatever that they could pilot and stuff, and that seemed kind of interesting, but it wasn't used very often. Their weapons actually, I don't know if, like, the lions matched, like, it was like one of those things where the wand chooses the wizard. The lion chose the rider. And the weapon fit the rider's personality. Now, I don't know if it was always the case if the weapon was always the same for the rider that fit that lion, or if, because they, obviously they made it sound like the lions had previous paladins that died. In fact, the black paladin's weapon was lost with the original black paladin. So I don't know if the weapons were the same for the previous riders, or if they just fit these, or if they were unique to each new generation of paladin, for lack of a better term. But they were kind of cool. I mean, the red really was the only one that was cool. He had the sword. Pidge had a kind of a brass knuckle laser cutter thing, and then the yellow one and the blue one both had laser guns. There were some fun moments. There was a point where they were talking about... sorry, I just reached over and grabbed a piece of pizza crust off my... there was a moment where they were talking about going in guns blazing, and someone made blaster noises, or laser noises, and one of the guys was like, "What was that? What was that noise?" And he's like, that was laser noises. And he's like, no. Laser noises sound like this. And he made a different type of noise, and then one of the guys was like, no. Laser noises sound like this. And he made his own noises. And they were like, yeah, that sounded more like, I don't remember what he called it, but he was making fun of the guy or whatever. And Shiro said, no, we're not going to send around making fake laser sounds. And by the way, they would sound like this. And so that was fun, because you didn't see it coming. He had another moment where was it? He's like, no, we're not going to do that. Maybe that was the same one. I don't know. There was another moment like that, or maybe it was that same moment, and it just kind of stuck with me enough to make me think it was 2 times. But where you think he's going to be all serious, and then he kind of joins in on it. But still, that wasn't anything. That could have been done with the princess, the highfalutin princess, who you think is above immature behavior, and then joins in on it. Anything else? The military group that they were a part of, I guess they lived on Earth. I'm pretty sure they said Earth at one point, because they get sucked through this black hole and lost, and they're whining about not being back on Earth. Lance mentions missing Rain, and Corin, the older alien character, is like, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's water that falls from the sky. And he's like, oh, we have that here, but it's not really water. It's kind of like rocks that burn and cut. And so that was kind of funny. But I mean, so I guess they were part of Earth, a futuristic Earth, where they were had some sort of, they were like space marines, kind of like it felt kind of like Starship Troopers, with where they were all supposed to be part of the military, the flight crew though. One was an engineer, one was a co-pilot, one was a pilot, and then Keith had actually been drummed out for some reason or another, which they didn't really get into. But, supposedly him and Lance were competing against each other all the time, even though Keith apparently didn't remember Lance when they first met, or maybe he was pretending on that. But I mean, it wasn't made clear what the point of that group was, other than they intercepted Shiro's whatever when Shiro had been out in space with a couple other people, and they get captured or go missing or whatever, and then he shows back up, he crashes back on Earth, and the government captures him, and the four paladins who aren't paladins yet rescue him, and that's how they find the first lion. And it was, like I said, the chase was cool, but it didn't feel like it mattered at all what that group was, other than, hey, we're going to capture this guy because he's been missing. And I don't know, like I said, they go through a black hole and they don't see Earth again, and you're like, well, then what was the point of them interrogating this guy, trying to find out what's going on, if it has no effect on Earth after that? It just didn't feel. It was like they put no thought into that. I was like, oh, we want them to make it to look like it's going to be important, and then, hey, no, it has nothing to do with it at all. We just needed a group that held him captive for a while. Like I said, it should have been a lure. They should have done a Superman-esque storyline where her father sends her, once they attacked by the aliens, whoever the bad guys are, comes, and they're, on their last resort or whatever, the father should have sent the lions away, then sent her away, and her pod being intercepted or whatever could have been what brought the paladins together. That's my take. And yeah, that might have been cliche as well, but it just felt unnecessary the way they did it. Uninteresting. I really didn't like Shiro being an old dude. Like I said, I didn't think the group dynamic worked that way. There was one other really funny moment. I guess this is kind of a spoiler, but Lance, they'd rescued. They showed up on this planet, and there were these creatures that worshipped the lion, the Great Lion or whatever they called it, and the princess was like, "No, we're not here to punish you." They thought the lion was there to punish them and whatnot. Anyway, so the group were celebrating with him for whatever reason, and one of them comes up and to Lance, and he's like, and hugs him, and he's like, I'm not normally the hugging type, but you're just so adorable. And the creature goes, "Oh, thanks," or something like that. I mean, it was just like this deep old man, biker voice out of this little cute cuddly creature, and Lance is just like, why is this biker? I mean, it's not a biker dude, but I mean, that's the voice. It sounded like someone you would, an offshore oil rigger or something, very masculine. Why is this thing cuddling me? It was funny. It was a laugh out loud moment. That and the other one where Corin, who I honestly thought was going to be a bad guy when he first showed up. The flashbacks the flashbacks with him and the princess and her dad, and then him and her being the only two survivors, it felt very like they set it up for him to betray him, which they don't. But it felt that way. Like, it felt like that's where they were going. But his line about Pidge and the moment I just mentioned with Lance and the cuddly offshore oil rig creature thing were the two really, really funny moments of the series, and they were few and far between. So I'll watch the next season if they have it. They ended on a cliffhanger. I didn't really like it. Like I said, it was on in the background, and it ended, and they're like, "We're being sucked." But yeah, and I was just like, "Really? That's how you're going to end it?" I don't know. I didn't care for it. I'll watch the next season if they have it, just to see where it goes, see what the resolution to the cliffhanger was. But I have no vested interest in it. Like I said, I'm not a huge Voltron fan. So yeah, that's my review. Watch it. Don't. Enjoy it. Don't. Whatever. Have a good night, folks. Bye.